Ladies and gentlemen, we have the beautiful and bendy Robbie Pitts with us. We're very excited to talk to you, sir. Joey and I
Hello.
just watched Full Spiral.
Yeah.
Wow. There's so much to discuss with this. The first thing I want to talk about is your body.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do
How
it.
much do you weigh?
Um. So I weigh. I mean, it fluctuates like a little bit. I suppose in kilograms, like I'm usually between 62 kilos and 65. I suppose in pounds, it's like I think maybe on my driver's license, it's like 142 or something, maybe.
Okay.
Something like that.
And how
Yeah.
tall are you?
6'1".
Okay,
Oh,
six
okay.
foot
Yeah.
one. Wow. We were
I,
talking about
I
we couldn't really tell if you were taller or
What did you
uh,
think, like in terms of my height? What would you put it at?
I'll say your topsouls made me think that you're 6 feet. Something about your topsoul technique that you have. You really have the topsoul or the far side soul. It's kind of like even when you do it on rails, it has a topsoul look to it. But
I appreciate that.
it's is the far side soul. It's like a taller person trick, or the way that you do it. It's like a shorter person. It looks like it takes more effort for them to get up, and for you, you really have it like it looks like a comfortable trick for you.
I would say it's probably one of my most favorite. Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like just with the progression of tricks, as you know, I've been skating since 98. So quite a number of years. And I mean, I went through, the whole spectrum of like learning lots of really technical grinds of like true spins and top sides and true spin top sides and all the variants. But I think like, I don't know, I've just found more ease, obviously, and like fun of just doing very simplistic grinds. And topsouls was always one of them. Like for my repertoire on handrails is not gigantic by any means. And so like I can pretty much do most top sides, forward top sides, down tricks and like down rails, for instance. And yeah, topsoul is probably my safety trick in a way. Like I'm one of those people that prefer topsouls over a soul grind on a handrail or something that's kind of more daunting. Yeah.
yeah, I'm
But
very jealous of that. It looks like it's really
oh, really?
fun to be you doing a topsoul.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Um, Joey
Somewhat,
and I were
somewhat.
talking
Yeah.
before we started, and I was saying I think you might have the perfect body for rollerblading because you're you're
No way.
you're flexible and you're light. I mean, 100 140, that's pretty light. It looks like it's easy for you to jump, and it looks like it's easy for you to get into grinding positions.
Yeah. I will say I feel like I'm not like the best at jumping super high. And I also find it depends on how much I'm skating in terms of regularity, skating high, like higher obstacles. Because I can jump onto things obviously that are like waist high, and if I'm doing it a lot, maybe that's even more easier. But it does take me a while, I guess, to kind of like warm up to that sort of stuff. But it's funny, like I'm sure the both of you have experienced this as well. Maybe not, but like I remember growing up, like idolizing how people could move their legs, like particularly with say 540s, and how certain people could lift their legs up. And like
Yeah.
it's something that you it takes so long to get like that comfort in your body, to be able to like actually move your legs and position yourself in a way that you want.
Right.
And I think like so it's funny because sometimes I feel like I remember when I first started skating, I would jump and bring my feet in one direction to the side. But then, so for instance, it's like when I first started skating, if I were to jump forwards over something, I would bring my feet up to my right. But then I do royales and soul grinds and everything, like most of my tricks are all based on my right. So eventually I started being able to lift my feet up to the left, because when I first started doing, say, spins over stairs when I was really young, like 10 11 sorry 11 12 13, I would always bring my feet in reverse, like how Frankie Morales does it. and grab from behind. So that's lifting my feet to the right. But then like I loved like people like Ian Brown or, there's so many other people who do 540s and they would flick their feet to the left if they span to the right. And so it took a long time to be able to make a conscious choice to lift my feet up in that direction. But I think if you look at it like, accumulatively over the course of 20 plus years of skating, and particularly doing so many royales and so many topsouls, when you go to like jump over things, you're essentially almost sometimes just jumping in the royale position or jumping in the topsoul position. Like Sean Das is someone who jumps over things in a forwards, position a lot. And he's really good at it. But if you look really closely at like sometimes the way he like positions himself, it's like you almost can see him as like going slightly into a topsoul because he's really good at topsouls or does really good royales. And it's funny, like I feel like, how people go into like the shifty when they're just doing forward airs. It's like they're slightly just going into a royale, and then, I feel like for me over time, that's just been accessible because I've done so many topsouls or royales in my life, Yeah. Do you feel similarly in regards to that?
It's interesting to look back upon like how my movements have evolved. And I definitely hear you on like, yeah, I used to do 540s completely different than how I do them now. And it's a combination of like watching certain people and then figuring out how I can move my body and then finding the way that feels the best for me and then refining that. And that changes over time.
Yeah,
that's an interesting.
I actually think of your spins, like particularly your 540s, almost like a very like 1998 classic 540 style. Because like, do you like by choice do a reverse safety grab?
Not by choice. No, and I avoid like if I'm gonna do a 540 and I'm gonna like put a lot of love into it, it's gonna be an abstract 540, and I'm gonna feel a lot better about it. If it's like
you are one of the better people who do that move.
Yeah, and it feels so good. And when I do kind of like a safety 5, it never feels as good. And I hate the fact that I safety grab it the how did you describe it? The opposite way?
I call when you grab from behind essentially reverse. Like I'll call it a reverse safety grab.
Yeah, like if I had the choice, if I could engineer my safety grab 540, I would like grab into the spin as opposed to like spinning and grabbing away from it. Yeah, that's just how that worked out. I don't feel that good about my safety 540s. I feel better if I abstract it.
Well, I mean, if we're going about like adding, more flair to something, I think, it's definitely like a way more standout thing. Like there was a whole period where no one did the abstract. Like I remember it as a teenager when it came in, and it just looked so like seeing Dominic Sagona do it was like mesmerizing.
Yeah.
And then like, like epitomized in that sequence in his Daily Bread interview. You know what I mean? And like I know that you're such a fan of Dominic skating, and you really see like you do it with your own Todd twist, but it really pays homage to like Dominic and people who were doing those in that time, like no one did them for ages. And like, it's really actually cool to see that more people are doing, I wouldn't call it experimental grabs, but like people are expanding the grab repertoire because like, or revisiting it, should I say? Because I remember like as a kid, I loved like fly fish, as a grab. And particularly like, you just see a photograph of someone doing a fly fish war ride, or a mute grab war ride, just those really tight photographs and stuff. And like they just disappeared. No one did fly fish brains. And I remember
the fly fish disappeared for a long time.
It did, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's cool that people are doing them again. And they're like, there's so much like beauty in different grabs, and it just for so long it just seemed like people were just so interested in just doing safety.
It was standard for a while it's
Which,
exciting to
when done
people
well, is
getting
good.
wild with different airs. It's like nothing's off the table now. Nothing like there's no there's no tricks that are in style or like out of style. Like for a while, even Unities. No one did Unities.
Mm.
Like
I've always been a really big fan of front Unities, and like
how sick is a Unity? Your legs are crossed, you're sliding. Why not?
My friend, his name's Matthew. He's from France. He was living in Sydney. This is back in 2007. He was good friends of Ryan Arnold and whatnot. And he was a skater. And I remember him complimenting me about my Unities back then. And he was saying, normally I don't like those tricks, generally in the way that people do them. And the thing that he said that identified why he liked my ones was because when I did them, my body was completely perpendicular. Like my shoulders are completely perpendicular to the obstacle. Like if it was a rail or a ledge, if your shoulders are fully perpendicular to the angle, like he said, like that's in his eyes, it looks much better, as opposed to if you're like your shoulders are facing the direction you're going and you're looking that way. But I feel like, at least for me, like if I analyze a lot of my like positions in grinds, like that's kind of like how I sort of do a lot of my grinds. Just very much like, at least if it's a Royale or Unity, or the rare occasions I do a Nugan, it's very much like that. It's really like in that position.
You're really interesting because a lot of your tricks, and you come from a pretty traditional lineage, like, and for a while you skated pretty traditionally. You learned all the technical grinds and you do them very, in a traditional sense, like very well. Like you have a very textbook top soul. You have a very textbook Unity, but you've obviously taken those very traditional fundamental skills and gone just crazy with combining very creative abstract movements with it.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting about you. Like it seems like there was a clear point where you really expanded your movements and you became really expressive and free and creative and all those words.
Yeah.
What was kind of the catalyst for you to just get really weird?
I'm really glad you asked this question. So you're 100% right. My upbringing was very, very traditional. And even like the people that I was inspired by, like even when I first was, say, on the international scene in 2009 and 10, like I feel like my skating was still pretty like traditional, in many ways. But it was a couple of things. One of them was this. So from say 2009, I took my first trip to the United States, and then was touring around in the United States and did the same thing in 2010. This is like, Valor for Life, the premiere of Valor for Life, and which was in 2010, and just being more open to the rest of the world of skating. And not only that, like with the people that I met, but also with like people back home. One of the things that I came to really dislike, because I identified this pretty heavily, is that there were a lot of people who were very like adamant in the way that they were going about skating of appropriating skateboarding tricks to like appropriating skateboarding moves and appropriating skateboarding spots and essentially doing them on inline skates, doing them on rollerblades. Like you could interchange the the tool skates to a skateboard or whatnot, but essentially they're doing the same move. Right. And after a while, I just got so like kind of tired of that, just seeing it, and I just felt like there was so much more possible with skating, that like I wanted to start doing tricks that were very rollerblade centric, that were so much like that were so specific to inline skates that you couldn't do them with any other tool. bike ride, you know, doing bikes or scooter or skateboard or whatever, that, you know, one of the greatest things was the very fact that like you have 2 feet, you know, and like if you analyze a lot of the tricks that I do, I do a lot of things that involves like using one foot or the other, you know, interchanging between things. And I feel like that is just like a simple idea is like so underutilized, you know, like everything was very often was just like about landing 2 feet or like doing things in a grind or even a jump. And it had to be like your feet were close together, you know, like, and I just felt like I really wanted to explore things that were so rollerblade specific. And that even then translates to like how you then skate spot, you know, because like one of the things that a lot of people, like particularly who don't, you know, aren't in the rollerblading community, who see my skating often say to me, they're like, oh, your skating reminds me a lot of parkour. I wouldn't say I've had any kind of direct influence from parkour. Like I don't ever really watch parkour videos or don't really know much about the actual culture at all, but I know what it is. And like, I think there is a lot of similarities in terms of like how certain people in that community approach spaces and approach obstacles and approach their tricks. Because with me, I found that like, you know, as I was younger growing up, like there was a point where I just felt like I couldn't excel to the point of like the people per se that like were so technically gifted, you know, like, you know, let's say like how Chris Farmer is like so gifted at how he can just do any grind, you know, or how Ian McLeod could do, you know, fakie 3 true soul and a handrail. Like, I just like, you know, I could do that on like a little downledge at a skate park, but like, I never could take it kind of any further. And I just, that's where I ended up just finding more enjoyment out of doing like more simple based things, you know? So that's why when you watch maybe earlier stuff in Follow for Life or Seven Rats and whatnot, it's more very simplistic, like type of tricks, but maybe done like on a unique spot or something like that. But I feel like as I entered, which could be called my like later phase, because you were saying that like there was a point which was you could identify, and I feel like they are kind of like encapsulated by so I didn't skate like a lot during 2012 and 2013 because I was like I was in the midst of university, and also like just putting it out there, I was actually like, you know, pretty, like almost like clinically depressed.
Yeah.
And I came out of like finished university, and like I got into like I was free, and I took a trip to the United States, and I skated, you know, I took a whole 3 months, you know, 90 days you can travel in the US. And it's actually the first time I went to Canada. It's when I went to Vancouver, and then I also took a trip to Saskatoon. And but not to derail. So that whole trip, I was just like so like loving skating, and I got like so motivated to skate. And when I came back to Melbourne, I just like was just so invigorated through the experience of just skating and having no kind of prep to skate in a sense of like in the public eye. Whereas I feel like I used to have that a little bit, like when I first became you know, sort of sponsored. And so that's where I think a lot of like the early stuff, like if you watch Main Dish, Them Goods Main Dish, and also Zigzag, which was done by my good friend Jared Thackeray, they're sort of like the early, like, you know, ideas of tricks that then got expanded upon into what became Chapter 2 and then Paycheck.
Yeah.
And I look at like those 2 films, those 2 sections, Chapter 2 and Paycheck, is like this, like almost like a coming of age moment, like
right.
because I had started to think about skating more conceptually, and I really wanted to like articulate and realize all these things that I had been thinking about. That's what I essentially like what happened. And the other thing I would say is that like most of like the way that I've gone about like filming, it's like two things. Sometimes it's conceptualizing tricks, thinking about movements, thinking about ideas, thinking about spots, or those type of things. And the other time is actually, to be honest, it's my favorite part of skating, is just not having any agenda and just purely improvisational. Just going out. The best place is just go to like an urban area, like a street in the city, in the downtown, and just finding things and just like playing. Just igniting that youthful spirit of like just seeing what you can kind of do, and like not really thinking anything too much of it until maybe there's that moment where you're like, oh, maybe I should record this or something, That to me is my favorite, of just like having no pressure and just finding stuff. And that's where I feel like I actually almost get the most memorable things that, in my opinion, for myself, have come from that. Like there's been plenty of times where I've had a spot in mind to go to. Like even there's some in Full Spiral that are like that. But I had an idea of doing something in that spot, and I've got there and I've gone, oh, I think this is going to actually be a lot harder than I thought. And it might just be like I'm also not up for it on that day. Like I'm not willing to like risk hurting myself that much, or like going through the ways of like trying whatever that is. And also it might just be the idea of that it may actually not even be that kind of worth it. So usually in those cases, like rather than being so rigid with like, I have to do this, I've started to become, since Paycheck onwards, was like just started being more loose, that if there was something that I couldn't do, like in the trick or a line or whatever it was, I decided to like, I'll just change one element of it to something that is more accessible to me, in my skill set. And that means that I'll be able to land the trick and feel good about myself that I've got something to take away from it. Like also the person who's like been slaving away at the camera, like feels good that they've got something. And so all in all, it's like you want to feel good about your experience skating. So I try to embrace more looseness, improvisational kind of approaches too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where all the magic happens. When you're just open to whatever happens and just like following your instincts at a spot, what excites you about the spot, what movements excite you. Those are the tricks that always turn out the best, as opposed to when you have a rigid idea of I want to do this today, and you go and you force it and you make it happen. Just like magic happens when you're just open to the moment,
Yeah.
I
think both of you are definitely like great examples of that. Like having not skated with you and just watched, you over the years through your video parts, like I feel like that translates. Even though, like without actually being there in person, I feel like that approach, I feel like would be a big part of like the way you both skate.
Definitely.
And I've also heard you both say that you also don't like to take too many attempts.
Yeah.
That you can conserve your time and that like you'd rather move on to something else, which I find really, that's quite inspiring.
Yeah, I think it can like kill the flow and the fun of it to just sit and try one thing over and over and over. It's like, it's good to do a lot of different things. It just keeps it more enjoyable. How do you feel about doing things or trying the same trick over and over?
I am like so guilty of that. And it's something that I've tried increasingly till this very day to get better at not doing. I used to be in like, I wouldn't say I have like clinical obsessive compulsive disorder, but I definitely have like attributes of that in my life. And it definitely translates to perfectionism and then translates into skating. And so, yeah, I used to do stuff over and over again to get it like, because I was so conscious of like how my body was positioned when I was landing or something, and
so you'll do it, but it won't quite feel right. And you'll say, okay, let me do it once more because my hand was like flailing too much. My wrist was weird or.
Yes. But the interesting thing is like, I feel like a lot of that stuff becomes so subjective to your own experience. It's just like you're trained to think like, oh, that feels like that, therefore that doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
You know, it's once you start like questioning, you know, those like internal, you know, structures that you've almost, I guess, you've built for yourself, that you start allowing yourself to be a bit more open. And like, remember like filming with Malcolm through Paycheck, it was so great because Malcolm was someone who was so open to like embracing the more kind of like wild attributes to like the way you did something. And sometimes I would do a trick and it's like comes down to like, you know, you've got so much you know, ingrained I guess like an ability in your skating to like get yourself out of a bad situation, or like if you land a bit wrong, you might do something to like correct yourself, you know, or whatnot.
Those reflexive.
So you don't fall over, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And I remember I would end up doing tricks like that or coming out of them in a certain way, and like he would be like, "Oh, you should like we should keep that." Like it's like that's the trick. Like, and then I started to realize, as in like, yeah, you're right. Like I couldn't redo that, you know. And I started being more open to try and embracing those moments that just came out instinctually because I was trying to like, you know, correct myself in a way, like as I was moving through the motion of a trick. And then I would say progressively through everything I've done thereafter, from Paycheck onwards, I've been way more loose and open with all of those things. I would say to the point now where I'm so loose about like actually just accentuating all of those like moments that are kind of off and weird. And actually I would say I've almost like kind of reclaimed them for something that I feel like is my own, like instead of feeling like they're something that I should be refining to, you know, or disregarding, I've gone in a way where I'm actually choosing to keep them as a way of like, I guess, furthering the expression in a way that feels more orientated towards, you know, maybe like dance or like that's kind of the way I've progressively felt like my skating has kind of gone like further up until this point, that it's involves more of like a kind of like an approach towards performative arts, because I grew up as like more of a visual art person, to do with, you know, drawing, design, photography, film, video, graphic design. But I never felt comfortable as like in my own body in presenting myself of being able to like do something physical. Like say, I never really took theater in school. I did it when it was compulsory, so to speak. But I think all of that like comes down to like, I was just too shy internally to like present myself that kind of way. And I feel like as my skating has evolved and like I've started to embrace all those like random movements, it's like I've turned them into like some kind of like element of like improvised choreography or something, you know, like and yeah, I don't know, it's like I like using like if my foot goes weird, I do it so much now that like I'll like instinctually like I'll move it this way to kind of correct it and turn it into something that like feels right, or kick my foot or like land really low and then spring out of it, or like, you know, like just to kind of like feel the movement, feel the motion. Because essentially I feel like that's what I love about skating. That's why I feel like with the whole thing of just improvising is that like I like just seeing what can happen, you know, in doing something. And like I've done so many of like the regular tricks so much in my life that like it's fun just seeing like what evolved through like using them maybe in unconventional ways, or just pushing yourself to kind of the limits, I would say, you know, to some kind of degree.
And it looks like you're enjoying yourself more. I mean, it looks like you're more in the moment because you're more,
yes.
You're more connected to what's actually happening, as opposed to like having a strict idea in your head and having to execute it in that way. You are, you know, the whole thing is flowing. And if something happens that you don't anticipate, it sounds like you just roll with it and make it, you know, part of the whole thing, as opposed to like, oh no, stop, we got to do it over again. Give me one more try.
Absolutely. a great example of that, where I feel like that that approach in my skating like is like really well seen. Like, I mean, I think it's well seen in Full Spiral for sure, but a glimpse of it that people have already seen, for instance, is like when Patrick released Reactivated. There was so many tricks in that like I didn't have any like real set ideas of things. It was like we were just somewhere, and then essentially I just thought of doing something. Like a great example is the first trick where I do like the half jump over where the rail's in between my legs to jump up to a backslide, and then I do like this royale into like a wall on a bench, and then I like alley wall right out to land, and I like do this spinny kind of thing with my leg. But all of that, to be honest, it's like it just comes in the moment. Like I know I'm going to royale into the bench and do like the wall ride, but like how I land and how I spin out of it, like I'm not just going to land the wall ride and just roll off. Like I know I'm not going to do that, but everything else sort of just comes kind of naturally as to how like I feel when I've like come off certain elements of the trick, you know, and to be honest, those parts are always like, to me, the most fun out of the whole thing. Of just like doing these kind of boogie moves on the ground, and like, and yeah, like so many of them are just like spontaneous. And I really love embracing that because I feel like it's like you just never know where it's going to come, you know, like what's going to happen. Yeah.
It's like it's a skill to be open to those happy accidents, you know, and be able to roll with them and not let them kind of break you out of character, not let them like mentally say, oh, this is a screw up, this wasn't a make or whatever. Just whatever happens, like flow with it. And, you know, that's a skill to be developed into itself, being in the moment.
Yeah, because like as I just said, like I definitely didn't have that always.
Yeah.
And I've just learned to be conscious of it and to treat it as something that I should embrace, as opposed to trying to fight it. And yeah, I guess just by doing so, it's in a sense probably become a recognizable trait of my current style of skating.
Right.
Something that I loved is that there was the clear change in Paycheck and what was the other? Paycheck and Vine Street 2, right?
Oh yeah.
So there was a clear change there, and then Reactivated came out, and then you went even further with it, which was so exciting because I was already excited that like, holy, Robbie went into another dimension. And then I can't remember if I texted Todd, I'm like, Robbie's like in the year 3000 now. When I watched Reactivated, I was already excited that you had pushed it far, and then you pushed it even further. So watching this one tonight, you're still pushing it even further. And I love that there's like this little box of rollerblading and rollerblading tricks that people are breaking out of, but it's still, everyone's kind of connected to the box a little bit. And I get feelings when I watch your stuff. It's like, I wish I could break out. Like, I wish I could tap into that more often for my own skating, and I want other people to. I would love to see people go that far. So I had to say that I loved seeing that you went further. I thought that you had reached the furthest point with Paycheck and Vine Street 2. Yeah. And then you keep going more. And what I love is that you do reference, you're a fan of rollerblading, so you're referencing traditional things in your skating. But then you also do the improv thing. But then you're also referencing very rollerblading-y things, like there's bits and pieces of Dare to Air in the very earliest rollerblading stuff. Yeah. And you're taking all those things and you're making it your own. Where there's only one Robbie Pitts. There's no imitator of Robbie Pitts.
No.
So you could say, like, I could say to Todd, I could try and tap into my inner Robbie Pitts, which I guess is like the inner child or something. So there's a question here.
Well,
go ahead, Todd.
And along these same lines, something that I really admire and draw inspiration from you is your level of freedom. You seem to be very free to express yourself. Is there a way that you get into this mindset of freedom and like, do you have any method when you go out skating, like, that helps you just become not I mean, what am I trying to say? Like, so many people are self-conscious, right? And there's
Yeah.
the day-to-day mundane thing that everyone has. And then when you put your skates on, you want to like be free with yourself, but sometimes you're still kind of stuck in that rigid mentality. So how do you kind of break into this like freedom zone?
Well, I'll preface it by saying like most of my life have been so self-conscious, like just, like scared of the way people are going to think of me, or like misinterpret me, or just like I was just so reserved and shy, and like I think it's been like an evolutionary thing, like essentially like I always looked up to people who like did something unique and looked different, and kind of just had like a confidence, and I just never like felt I had that. And I think it just like went through these different stages of like, when I first made a choice to start dressing in a what I would call a non-rollerblader style, which eventually became a rollerblading style, like in 2005, like just started being more interested in music, and dressing more inspired by music I was listening to, which, taps into essentially what I was seeing through Road to Nowhere and whatnot. But like, it wasn't just like I was just doing what the skaters were doing of that kind of time, because like it wasn't like a fad to me. It's like I found some, like I always loved dressing up, like even in skating, like I just obsessed with the way people dressed. I loved the way John Elliott looked. I loved the way, like, I mean, I remember in 2004, like I loved the way, like in Ego or Hashashins, the way Julian Barr wore certain clothes, like he'd wear all black and just like a really long white shirt underneath or something. But anyway, so I was always obsessed with clothes. And I think just like by breaking out and like finding an interest in, I suppose you could just summarize it as retro fashion, I just kept kind of doing that, and then like eventually there became a point where I just felt more inclined to like fuse it more together. Like in a sense, I was just like, I wasn't wearing, you can maybe say at my full potential when I was going out skating. And I just sort of felt like, when I skate, it's like, it feels like the most purest form of my expression. Like it feels like the thing that I most connect with. And that like, when I started to just be like, oh, it doesn't matter, like if I wreck that thing, like I love that item of clothing so much. Like if I wear it, it'll make me feel better just being at the session, or being out in the streets, because you're presenting yourself how you want to look ultimately, and then like you're combining it with this activity that you feel like best represents you. And so I just kept kind of going with that, and it's like the same thing, all these mentalities of like, saying how breaking into being more, training yourself to be more open to improvisational things, or training you to be loose or whatever. It was like the same thing. I just started doing that more, like just being like, particularly like it's like, I'm always interested in pushing myself to the boundaries, to beyond the boundaries that I already have like made for myself. So if I'm dressing a certain way, like I like being like, I've never worn that before. Like how will I feel if I wear something that's mesh? I've never worn mesh. I've never worn like leather pants before. Like, so I went and found like, like leather pants, and I wore them like, in full spiral and reactivated.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just about the experience, of how, like, I think that's also like the experience of changing yourself physically for me. And that taps into, I suppose, fashion, is that like, I feel like it gives a much better, for me, an understanding of like your experience in the world, like how you can experience different things, how people might treat you, how you may think of yourself. Like, it's like, for instance, sometimes like I'll have no facial hair, and I love when I'm clean shaven, but then like most of 2019, like I was clean shaven. But then like when I was here in lockdown in Melbourne, like I just grew a beard, and then I was like, I've never done a handlebar mustache. Like, I'm just going to do it. So I did it. And it's like the way I feel about myself with the handlebar mustache, it's like I feel more like, in a strange way, it's like these weird juxtapositions of like femininity, but with their like traditional expression of masculinity, like male facial hair, you know? So like when I have like facial hair and I don't, it's a totally different experience. So when I've done it for too long, I just like to change it up just to keep, you know, changing the experience for myself, because I don't like to ever feel like absolute in anything. You know, I like to always kind of like keep thinking that there's more to know about yourself, and by like doing new things. And that's the same with skating. It's like, I don't want to just keep doing the same things in skating, because it's like, it's in a sense sort of just gets kind of boring, you know, and I like to feel like new experiences in skating are really fun. And I think like, it's like, I feel like every time, if you were to look at my parts from chapter 2 onwards, it's like, I feel like it's almost like you'll get these little glimpses in a way of like maybe where I'm going. Because, you know, you film up until like the very end. It's like the start is different to the ending, you know, but like I try to keep a consistency. Like when I film for Full Spiral, I kept the goatee the whole time, because I didn't want to break that character. I wanted to stay in that look, that world that I was in. And like it went on for ages. Like it was like it was like so long. And I was so grateful to finish filming and then be like, God, I can shave now. And then I brought about a new me. Right. So like, I mean, like to get into these ideas of freedom, it's like at some point I just really stopped. I forced myself to stop caring what people thought. And actually, I'll tell this is tied into it. When I was in university, like, you know, in school, I was never one to be like, answer the question, you know, like go up the front of the class, like tell everyone this or that. I don't know what people think of me in the way I dress, like, or, you know, what their ideas of me being confident or whatever. But like, I was never like that, you know? And I remember in university, like I felt like a teacher would ask something, a topic, and want to talk about it, discuss it. And I'd get these ideas in my head and be like, oh, I want to say this. But like other people who are like more boisterous or whatever, would be like, oh, you know, like saying it. And I'd just be sitting there like kind of waiting my turn. And I started to be like, no, I need to just force myself to say something. Like, because, you know, sometimes like you can get an opening and if you wait too long, it's gone. And you're like, oh, okay, I have to wait. And then maybe the conversation has passed. So it was like that. I just started like speaking up, and it felt good to then say what was inside of me, you know, to the class, present it to the world, you know, to then see where the conversation is going to go. And in the same way with clothing, tricks, whatever, it was the same thing. I just started having these ideas. Like when I was saying about the whole thing of like wanting to do more rollerblading centric tricks, it just was coming up in me. And I just wanted to I wanted to start doing it. And I think that's just like, it's like just not suppressing yourself with anything that you feel intrigued to do, because like you're in the end, you're in this life once. Well, whatever you subscribe to, you know, like, but like in the essence, if you're living right now, just think of it as this lifetime, right? And this is only once. So you might as well just like give it your all. You're gonna age, and your body's gonna like not allow you to keep doing these things. There's nothing better than the moment.
Listen, I'm not gonna age. I disagree.
What's that?
I'm not gonna age.
I mean,
how dare you?
You look beautiful.
How dare you? I love it. You are the perfect storm of like someone who had this shy person who was frustrated at being shy, and you embraced this outlet that you had, rollerblading, and you became this very expressive, unshy, extremely wild rollerblader.
You know, actually, you know, something that was like when I first was on the international scene, because like, you know, I'd been skating in Australia since 98, and like I was so involved with the Australian scene, you know, for so many years. So everyone knew me and got to know me for, you know, being into, perhaps say, different things or whatever. But when I started going off into the international world, you know, going to America, going to contests, being featured in videos, then being present on the internet, one of the things I felt like that was really like a hard thing that hit me was like of how much people would constantly just be like, oh, he's only on Valo because of the way he looks, you know, or something like that. And I mean, look, I mean, to be fair, yeah, maybe my skating wasn't that great, like in 2009, you know, like, I don't know. I mean, I was just doing me and trying to just do the best that I could for myself. Essentially, like, I can't control if, you know, John Julio and Alex Brosco were the ones who liked my skating and approached me, you know, when they came to Australia and said, you know, would you like to skate for Valo Australia? Like, you know, I just took that wonderful opportunity because they were really nice people. I admired them, and who would turn that down, essentially? But yeah, it was always like this whole thing where I felt like I just wanted people to really, you know, it's like, you know, I was saying that, like, learning not to care, there was still this element of like, I wanted the rollerblading community. You're not going to get every 100%, you know, the total population, but, you know, I did want to feel like that people liked my skating, that they could see past, like, even though they're so interconnected, which I love and I embrace, but I wanted people to see my skating, that what I could do as a skater, and to really admire that, or, you know, just not even admire, but just respect, you know. And I think it's funny, like, yeah, when I started like going in this new direction from 2014 onwards, I literally just stopped caring. I stopped caring what like anyone wrote on Roller News about me or BMAG message board or whatever. And honestly, it was just like, I just was like, this is how I want myself to be seen. And I just kind of kept with that motion. So I don't know. I think in an essence, it's like, you just got to look at, like, instead of looking at the negative thing that someone's saying about you, which very often is just like one individual, maybe.
Yeah.
That, like, look at those other people in your life who are saying great things about you.
Right.
Like, if you're trying something different, for instance, like, it depends on your social situation, your friends or whatever, but, like, you know, people who care and love about you are going to support whatever you're like trying to do. You know, as long as it's not harming anyone else. Like, if you're just choosing to dress differently, what does that matter? You know, like, if you're choosing to, you know, to wear some makeup or like do something like just physically different, what does it matter? So really, if you just start listening to yourself of what you want to do, but then also, you know, combining that with listening to the people who you admire, you love, you respect, you care for, listen to what they're saying in a sense of like being supportive, and use that as power to just be your best self. You also got to put it out to everyone behind Life Plus at the time with the Carson Way brothers. Is like, you know, like Drew Backrack, like just have their curation, like allowing like those things to be seen at that certain time and allowing them to be presented on that platform. Yeah. I think that's like a big thing, because otherwise, if they didn't, if they weren't open to those sort of things, maybe, you know, we would never have like seen that beautiful piece of work. You know, I don't know. I just like, yeah. Another good thing, for instance, I always remember this is like, you'll know this for sure because you're just a scholar of skating, is that you remember it was an early Daily Bread, like early 2000s, John Elliott, it's a photograph, it might have been by Keith Wilson, maybe someone else, but it's a photograph of him doing a toe roll, and it's like shot from the front. He's wearing a bandana, I think, and a white shirt, black pants, or whatever, and it's like, I don't remember ever seeing a photograph of a toe roll like in the magazine before, and like having that like like, because I remember like looking at Daily Bread or any videos around that time, because that was such an influential time in skating, that like seeing, like I was like waiting for someone to do something new, because it almost was like, because I was so young, it's not like I was empowering myself to do anything new. So seeing all of these, you know, adults and whatnot do, you know, say like John Elliott or whatever, like do something new in the next video part, it was like, that gave me the permission to then go out and try power slides on the ground. Or like, I remember when we had a premiere for Words, and like being blown away by that. And then like we all went to the city skate park in Melbourne that night for a night session because it was so juiced. and we tried set slides downstairs because like we'd just seen it being done. It was like opening this door, being like, whoa, like we've got to try that, you know? And I just like with the toe roll thing in the photo, it's just like these platforms like Daily Bread, you know, the biggest, you know, like rollerblading publication, like at the time, like, you know, allowing, permitting, giving people the opportunity to see a toe roll and for them to decide themselves. But it's also by them featuring it, they're getting their seal of approval in a way. And I think like big platforms or big personalities or big people in skating have so much influence over what, you know, what can shape in the community. Like if you're like, I always just felt so frustrated by some people's rigidity of like how to do things in skating, you know, and it's like, they're at this, it's almost like, God, I remember like like say with the Beatles, when they were making like music at one point, I remember, you know, saying about like hearing an interview or whatnot, and they're saying that, you know, they almost have a, it actually also might have been Graham Nash saying this, who was from the Hollies, then went on to Crosby, Stills and Nash. But I think like just the essence was that like, we are in a position of influence, in a position of power, and we should use it to help, you know, influence people for the like right reasons in an essence. And I feel like in skating, it's like there's so many people at that platform that like, yeah, like it can shape people's perception and therefore their own experience of what skating is. Like I mentioned it in the one blading, the one mag blade conversations like earlier last year I had with Justin, is that like when Alex Brosco started doing toe rolls and heel rolls, like, you know, the next year or two and then up to right now, like so many people are incorporating those tricks into their arsenal, into, you know, and it's like, you know, like Alex has so much like influence over the what people are gonna like do in skating. I mean, think about how much like, you know, those that like hand signal that he would do, or like the flipping of the bottle, or you know, like it's just like there's so much of like the culture is really shaped by people. So in essence, it's so great when there are platforms, say like we were saying with Daily Bread or Life Plus, you know, or even like yourselves with the Mushroom Blading, you know, brand that it is, like that there are individuals, you know, and platforms that are like giving their idea of what skating is, but also not being rigid in saying, well, we don't like this, you know, just being, this is what we like to do. And I don't know, I just think like the more people who are just doing what they like, in an essence, it helps broaden the diversity of what skating can be in terms of its representation. Because like right now there's so many different things. I feel like, look, I just watched like Sam Croft's USD part, you know, that John Lee put out. Like that was nuts. It was incredible. And like, you know, or like Carlos Bernal or someone like, you know, like people saying that like, oh, you know, where are all the hammers, or like where's this or that. It's like, yo, they are there.
Yeah.
You know, like there are some amazing people pushing that skating because that's the skating that they love. Yeah, like right. You're probably just looking at me. You're probably just looking at Todd and Joey, like, or you're looking at whoever. You're looking at Danny Beer. You're looking at Pat Ritter. Like, you know, like we just like the skating of what we're doing. We're doing our best to do our form of skating. But like, you know, there are so many different skating. Look, Joe Atkinson's out there doing his amazing skating. You've got, you know, like all the people who are involved with like the park circuits all over the world. You got Takeshi Yasutoko doing his thing, Roman Abrat, like, oh God, there's so many skaters.
So many people.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank you. You're making me wonder, like, I wonder if I wonder if the nature of technology has like opened people's skating up, because like you were talking about Daily Bread and you were talking about this one authority that would validate certain moves, and it was really slow moving. You know, you'd get one issue every month, and it was really like carefully crafted, and we, you know, like we want images that show rollerblading in like a really good light, and like the stunts, we want big big drop rails and big gaps, things that work really well for a photo. And that would come out once a month, and people would look at that and say, okay, this is what I need to do. Or they would get the latest like Joe Navran video or the latest Video Groove. And now it's like all these thousands of different windows into different people's Instagram feeds or like videos that they're making on YouTube. And there's no authority anymore. There's thousands of different authorities of their own domain, and it's like the individual aspect of rollerblading has just blown up. It probably has a lot to do with how the technology
very much like it's democratized the culture.
Exactly.
People are very threatened by that, though. They don't like that people have that much freedom, and all they need to remember is that they can create their own standards.
Exactly.
I love all the new media that's coming out in skating. It's perfect. It's like, don't worry about Daily Bread or Video Groove or all this stuff. Like, focus and highlight on the stuff that you really like. You're only threatened by the other people doing it is because they're doing it. You can do that yourself. So
you can still do exactly what you want to do. And if you're into a certain style, you can find it.
Absolutely. You know, I think like a lot of it comes down to is like, and it's not just for skating, it's how people live their lives. I think a lot of people want direction. Choosing your own direction is really hard. Making your choices, I have no judgment on people who are religious, you know, by any means, but like, you know, religion like gives you a set of things to, you know, to follow and to live by. It gives you structure. It gives you something to understand, to what it is to be, and what it is.
There's a right answer, Robbie.
Yes.
There's something I can follow and believe in and have faith in, and it's stable. It does not change, and I can live by those rules.
Yes.
And it's going to be the same tomorrow and the same the day after, and I'm confident in that.
Correct. And that there is something unconditionally out there that loves you, because God loves you, you know, and in a sense, like, I feel like people just want to be loved.
Right.
I just want to be loved. You know what I mean? Like, purely, you know, like, you know, I wouldn't, it's not out of any sort of sense of some kind of narcissistic pursuit. I think it's just, you want connection and you want to feel, you know, validated in your experience as a human.
Yeah.
So like right now, like, you're exactly right. There's so many platforms. I remember like, it probably was one of your podcasts or something so long ago. And like, I loved what, you know, you both were saying about how the way in which the technology of social media and the VOD and all of these platforms were enabling the skater to become the individual, that you didn't have to subscribe to the old idea of being a part of a team, you know, or like to go through, like, those things still exist and they're great. Like, that traditional structure and pathway in skating is great. And there's so much like reward in that. But I remember you both were saying how like there could just be someone in a remote part of the world. And if like, you know, they have good representation of the way that they film or put themselves out there, you know, you can make money from it through Patreon or through YouTube or whatever. And it's like the way in which you know, you can be a skater in, you know, 2021 is incredible. And like, you know, like there's just, like, I watch everyone, like, you know, from, for instance, like Joe Atkinson or Alex Brosco, you know, down to my friends, like, you know, you guys, Danny, Patrick, you know, Gav, like, or then like, I love you. Like, do you follow Polly? Rolly Polly?
Oh, I've seen some of her stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Polly's full name is Polly Morris. But, you know, she lives in Seattle, and like, I love watching her skating. And every time she does something new, it's just like, I'm so excited for her. And like, and it reminds me of how much of like, that is like one of the greatest things about skating, of just like learning something new, having a new experience. And like, but the fact that now I can, I can see that, and I can encourage, and we can have a conversation through it, you know. But let's say like I was someone else and I didn't like it. You know what you can do? Not follow or unfollow or just whatever. Like,
it's really like, easy.
The choice is there. You know, turn off the TV. Like,
yeah.
I heard the funniest term on action sports message board that will go unnamed. It was a board culture message board, and there was somebody who was saying that they like to hate watch YouTube vlogs, that they're obsessed with it, but they hate it. And I was like, that is such a weird action sports, like, cool guy. Like, there's something really deeply wrong there. But
I think it's a general thing. It's not just in skating or action sports. Like, people like to hate. People like to be haters. There's a certain vein that people can tap into.
But like watching, not just looking at a post, but like watching like a full, like,
I hate
15-minute
I'm gonna keep
vlog,
watching. I hate it. It's so bad.
Yeah, I think I've probably seen something like that before, but it's like, God, like, it just makes you wonder, just like, there's only so much time in your day, in your week, in your life, and it's like, I don't want to fill it with that. You know?
I just love the how it's not just skate video anymore, how just media opened up too. So there can be 3-hour podcast conversations, there can be 10-minute vlogs, there can be trick tip videos. It's like, it's so wide open too. It's like, how do you want to use like, how do you want to portray skating or what you want to do? I love that. I gotta say, I love, like, somebody like Wheel Scene is important to point out, because he's a great example of somebody who, you know, exactly what he likes in skating, what he likes to highlight. And we hadn't really had that. And then it's like, we have BMEG and one, but then there's these other people who are kind of like stepping in and like really have an opinion, really have something to say. And it's interesting whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
I would love to see more of that, more people like that. And I think a lot of people are afraid to put themselves out there too. That's an awkward thing. To talk unedited for this long is a strange thing, but I just think that compared to the early 2010s, it's just an explosion of styles, media. We have news shows now. We have, is it weekly? News shows.
Yeah.
That highlight all of the stuff that's happening in
one
skating.
every week.
It's insane.
It is. I think so. This past, I think it was since October. I've been working for the main, skating store in Australia called Bayside Blades, and like I've been working in their warehouse, processing orders and shipping and doing warehouse-based things. But it's been so enriching to be like a witness to so much skates being sold, and also to feel like you're a part of that process of facilitating someone getting skates. And I just like how much like people have been getting into inline skating, or just any form of skating. Roller skating, has a big part of it as well, in terms of how much like inline skating is shining and getting exposure as well. And it's like, I don't know, I'm just so excited for the future of skating, because it's like we've all been in it for so many years, and I feel like you always knew something like this was going to come. It's not like we were like sitting and waiting, like, there were people who were doing that or actively trying to bring it on sooner, saving rollerblading on that crusade. But like, it just happened. It just, it just ends up happening, and you just end up like you have a moment of reflection. I mean, like, whoa, how did this happen? Like, what? Like, we're now in a position where there's like so much more openness towards the activity and in general intrigue, and like, the amount of people who, and also the other thing that's really cool, just the amount of people just getting on skates is like amazing. Like, I love that. It's really beautiful to see. But the other thing that's been really cool to see is of how much people who have been just recreationally skating, this is me seeing, is how much they then want to just take an interest in aggressive skating, and it's like, it's cool seeing that. I think when people, it's funny, like, I feel like I was talking to, I think it was Heather. She's a New Zealand rollerblader who lives in Melbourne. And I'm sure she said this to me at one of the skate parks, Thursday night skates. I think she said that, like, I remember, not really getting what people were all into this grinding stuff. Like I didn't really understand it. But then I started doing it and I was like, wow, I get it. And it gets so like exciting. And you just want to do all these new grinds and it just like keeps going. And there is something like pure and simple about sliding on something that is just fun. That's like that's one of the things that got me into skating, seeing someone slide on a school bench,
Yeah. And once you experience that for yourself, like once you get onto a surface and slide on it and you get that feeling, it just hooks you. You just want to do it again and again and get better at it.
Exactly.
Grinding.
Yeah, we reconnected with grinding in the past little bit.
Yeah,
like
big time.
I have a new appreciation for it. And it's that tradition. Yep. It's our knowledge of the tradition of skating that you can tap into these postures that make you feel I don't know. When you do a good grind, it feels really good. And I wasn't excited about grinds for a while there, but
for a long time we would have grinding sessions and it felt like a joke.
Yeah.
Like it felt like we were doing this like thing that we did when we were kids, or we would be having fun, obviously, but there'd be an element of like humor about it. Like, look at this silly pose slide that I'm doing. And it seems like it's, in the last few years, it doesn't feel silly anymore. Like it feels like it really like means something, or it's important in some way, or it's valuable. It doesn't feel like just a joke. I don't know. It feels really awesome to do a grind.
But I think that's healthy because you both have gone through, a period where you stepped out. Maybe it was a really long period, but you stepped away from that, and like to return to something gives you perspective on what it is or what value it has in your life. Like, let's say travel. Everyone experiences traveling and going somewhere that's different or foreign, from your town or your country or whatever. And it's like, remember when you go back and of how much perspective it gives on like your experience?
Totally.
Same with getting back into grinding,
Yeah, the journey, it changes your perspective. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
So with Full Spiral, what the reward that you get? So are you like us where you're just obsessed and you don't really know why, you just want to keep making stuff? Or is there an audience that you intend for this? Or what is it about making these things? What's important about making Full Spiral for you?
I think it's essentially it just taps into getting out, this expression that I have like a faint idea of. It's like starting like I've never really dabbled in painting, but let's just use this as an example. It'd be like starting and putting the first mark on. Like you have this idea, and like sometimes the first mark is the scariest thing. But it's like once you start going, you just see where maybe it evolves or whatnot, like depending on your process. But like that's I think that's like it. Like I think I honestly, and I hope this doesn't come across as pretentious at all, but like I identify as an artist because like I have like I said, I went to, after high school, I went to art school, and then I went to university, and like my whole other side of me outside of rollerblading, skating, is like pursuing art, art and design. And so I honestly think it's just, and one of the things in my like artistic journey, my art journey in life, is that like I always was more fascinated about like discovering new techniques or new ways of like image making or whatnot. I would use a camera in like an unconventional way that like wasn't intended, or like it's the same. It's the same. It has parallels with skating in that like it's just ways of expressing ideas and things that you have in your head about this particular practice that like I just want to get out. And I also find that it's like I was saying earlier, that like a video part, okay, I'm going to give this example. How people talk, this is like anthropology or whatever. So you know how people talk about, like, they summarize like, oh, the 60s was this, or that was really 90s, or like that was really 80s, right? If you really study it and look at it, it's like, well, it's a lot of the time it ends up being like the late 80s blends into like the early 90s. Yeah. And then like, you know, there's a mid 90s, and then there's the late 90s that bleeds into the early 2000s, and it's not clear cut realistically, right. You know, and like, I think with making skate parts, that's what I feel about it, is that it's a journey that I've taken, and at some point you just have to press stop. Okay, this is done, right? And I feel that it's like the journey essentially is not finished, because at the very end, I'm probably thinking of, or just thinking and doing new things, and I have to press stop. So then like, I want to put that stuff that I have been playing with into something else. That, yeah, there hasn't come to a point where I don't want to do it, because I just keep like trying to find kind of new ways of like just broadening my skating experience. And it's not like I'm sitting there like, what can I do that I haven't done? It's just like, I feel like it just comes naturally, and I just listen intuitively to myself of, right. And so, yeah, that's how I look at it in terms of like making Full Spiral was, to me, it's like, it's the thing I'm most proud of in my skating, you know, journey thus far. I will say that, like, you know, like every one of them has represented something really important to me, like, and I'm grateful for those experiences, because everyone is a little different. Maybe to someone else they don't see it, but to me, I see the differences. You know, so they say, like how you said, chapter 2 is a little bit different to Paycheck, but what really, like, all of my video parts, essentially, they just sort of evolve into something. Like, for instance, Burn LA was, I started filming with Malcolm what was going to be maybe another video, you know, in 2017. But then the crew kind of sort of like disbanded it in a way. And then like, we weren't really making anything anymore. And there was a bunch of footage. And then like, I bought Malcolm's camera and then just kept filming. And I was filming Michael Decker and Spencer and Dust. And then it just evolved into like making videos. So then I made Burn LA, which then has my Burn LA parts in it. But like, it's like, it's each one of them are kind of different, you know, that they just sort of evolve. And this one didn't start out with like a clear vision of like, this is exactly what I wanted to do. It's the same as like I said, when we go skating, it's like, I don't usually have a super clear idea. It just evolves and it shapes itself over time. And then I start listening to myself, looking at the things that I'm interested in, and maybe applying that I haven't done before. Also thinking about what I've done before and how can I like do something new for myself. And a Full Spiral just evolved from that. And it just kind of like, so like, one of the other things is that like, which is really interesting with the practice of filming in skating or being filmed, is that like, it's a relationship with the filmer, right? So you have a trust and you commit with working with this person to create something. And for most of the time, it's their vision. And I've been super, super like privileged and I'm so honored to be amongst some really talented, you know, people. Like, you know, not only like my good friend Jared Thackeray from the earliest of days, but then to, you know, Dom West, and then to Malcolm Hurd. I think everyone I would think knows Dom West more than Malcolm Hurd, but Malcolm is like one of the greatest filmers. I think like he's like an underground hero of like the rollerblading film world. But I was so grateful to have, you know, like to Paycheck with him, and then like to do anything with Patrick Ritter, and then like to do Calls from the Bank with Danny, you know, like each one of them. And like, Calls from the Bank was like incredible because I didn't see it, which is actually exactly the same thing with Paycheck. I didn't see Paycheck my Paycheck part until the day before it premiered. And the same with Calls from the Bank. I don't think I saw it until it was pretty much the day before it was released, something along those lines. And like, there's something about trust. There's something about trusting the vision of those people you're collaborating with to know that what they're going to create is going to be something that you love, but also take you further than you thought you would. Like, right. I knew that working with Danny, it was going to be something really funny and cool. You know, it's like we didn't film that for that long. It was 2 trips to Vancouver of 2.5 days of filming each one. But he turned it into something really cool, and so Danny, but also so me, and so coming into Full Spiral, it was like I was doing a lot of filming. This is post Burn LA. It was like the first time I made a clear decision that like everything that was like going to be Valo was would go into my Burn LA part. Anything else I would film on Thems was going to be for this new thing, for whatever it was going to be. And so with that, it was like I wasn't working with a filmer. I knew that like I was going to be having people who I was skating with film me, and that would shape the filming of my project. But essentially, I knew it was going to be self-directed. But I wanted to do that as well because I've never had the chance to actually realize my own vision of myself in skating in terms of, because look, you can clone yourself and then like film yourself and,
in the future, give it 5 years.
But so it was like, I never really had like, Burn LA was like a beginning opportunity of that, but like I knew I wanted to take it kind of further. And there were so many things I was interested in putting forth with this new one that I wanted to make it different for myself, to keep reinventing myself in a way, to see how my experience is going to be different. And so like one thing I knew I wanted to do was that I wanted to have all the rights to the music, and I wanted to showcase music that I loved, but that also was more connected personally in a way. Like the main track of it is by this Melbourne group called Nozu. And like, I don't know them personally, but like, I just loved their music, and me being from Melbourne as well, like I wanted to showcase Melbourne Australian music. So I reached out to them, and they were, they liked my skating that I showed them, and they were totally down to, Nick was the main member of the group that I spoke to. And yeah, very lovely and very supportive. So I paid the rights for the music, and then I also, Malcolm is a big, close friend of mine. So like I wanted to feature his music. So Malcolm's music features in it as well at the beginning and the end. And so like that was something I was really set on. The other thing I wanted to do as well is the fact that like, it's funny, like before I went to LA in 2016, I was skating, I did Zigzag, and then I was starting to film chapter 2 and whatnot. But like, aside from that, I'd finished university and I'd basically had begun a kind of like video art career. I was doing lots of live video projection performances, like at dance clubs or accompanying with music, bands, DJs and things. And so when I moved to LA, I honestly thought I was going to do that, and pursue that with skating on the side. But, you're moving to a new town. I didn't know anyone in the music scene or anything. And who do I know? Rollerbladers. So I just kept rollerblading all the time. And like, that just took its own path. And it was, again, it's just that thing of like, just following what you're doing at the time, as opposed to being rigid about what you have to do. But so I knew when I was getting into this new project, I wanted to incorporate more of my interest in film and also music videos. And I wanted it to have something that evolved further than just the regular skating part. I wanted it to feel like a blend of a music video or a short film, but not too heavy on, say, the narrative side of it. Just kind of a loose theme, like I always loved, like, what do you believe in? Like some people might think of it as like, I don't know, maybe kind of corny or campy, or they just don't really like it. But like, I loved, at the very least, if you didn't like it, like one of the things I respect about it is the pursuit of trying it. Arlo's pursuit of trying something different. Yeah. And that was one of the things I wanted to incorporate it. And that's like, what you get with the beginning of the film and the end. And then like, I feel that the whole part sort of takes you on this journey. Like, and it's supported by the Nozu track, the music. It takes you through, like it goes all this daytime footage, then it goes into night, and it brings you back out, and then it just sort of takes you on this little voyage. And I didn't intend for it to be as long as it is. And like, but that's another thing. It just evolved to that point. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like being so interested in video art and that side of me, fusing it with my love of rollerblading and my like my deep appreciation of like rollerblading films and what has been kind of done. Yeah, I wanted to just do something new. So yeah, I hope it translates that way to people. So
on a scale of 1 to 10, just everyday life, walking around, doing just random stuff, how much are you thinking about rollerblading and making rollerblading videos? Like, is it a problem? Because it can be for me sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sure, like, we could give some random number, but I would just say that experience is the same. I'm sure we're on the same level.
Do you think that will change as you get older?
It's funny. Like, what I think it is, it just comes down to how much you lose yourself in what you're passionate, by. I think essentially, like, if you're loving what you're doing and let it just like fuel your life. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just like, maybe it'll change. Like, see, the thing is that like I want to keep making skating parts. Like, yes, of course. But like, I think I don't know what's going to be the future. I don't really think that far ahead in regards to that. But like, one thing I can be certain is that it will evolve and my interest in things will evolve. So like, maybe it will change and my focus on what I'm like really passionate about in the moment will be different. But what I've always thought about anything that I do as a person in the world is that like, and whether that's like, doing something in the art world or doing something, say it was with modeling or being, doing something in a film or whatever, is that like, I always just hope that gives someone an opportunity to then see me on skates, to then see the world of rollerblading, that it's like everything will just like trickle back down to like people getting into like the world. And if I can be like, a beacon, or some kind of like point of a beginning of someone's journey to get into skating, like that's all I could ever hope for. Because, like I've, the past 15 years of my life, lots of people, comment on the way that I look, and like that's a big part of me as well. But it's like, yeah, like like I always just like, it's like there was that time where I feel like there were people who didn't really, maybe you're just entering your early 20s or something. They would, some people just weren't confident to tell people that they were rollerbladers. But I was never dissuaded. Like I was always like, yeah, I rollerblade, and I would just, that more often than not was always like, oh really? Like, and it was like prompted, tell me more. So like, yeah, I don't know. It's like if I'm on set or something and like someone doesn't really know much about the rollerblading side, like, I'm always like trying to open it up. I remember like there's a music video that I did in Melbourne back in 2015 it was. And, I was just street casted for it. And it was like this, looked like this post-apocalyptic music video kind of style. And it was done in like this big glass bottle factory. So there's lots of broken glass everywhere and stuff. And I remember like they were dressing everyone up like it's a post-apocalyptic world. So like raggedy clothes and whatnot, like kind of makeup that looked like you had dirt all over your face and things. And one of the things which was really interesting for 2015 is that they had people like carrying rollerblades, just like random rec skates, just like slung over their shoulders. Like you're just like in some like, all of a sudden people are interested in rollerblading in this post-apocalyptic future. But so like I saw them there and I was like, look, why didn't I put them on? So I put them on and just like this is in between, like your scenes where you're just sitting there waiting for whatever's going to happen. I just put the skates on and just started skating around because there was nothing else to do, but also in hopes that like maybe someone will see me and be like, oh, that's interesting. And so they did. And then they saw, they were like, oh, actually, can we use you on your skates for this scene? And yeah, I ended up like, it was like where the main character comes through these roller doors and I like roll up on my skates with a fire extinguisher and like supposed to like, you know, spray him with a fire extinguisher. You didn't really see the skates that much. It was sort of sad they didn't emphasize it, but like, it's just like stuff like that, you know, just like not being afraid of like showing that you're a rollerblader in the world in whatever setting, in your working life or whatever. And it's like, you know, like, God, it's so much of who I am. Right. That like everything else is just like kind of in some ways secondary. Yeah.
It feels like more people are comfortable with that and they're older and they own it now. And a lot of because we live in a world where people are more free a little bit to be who they are, and it seems like rollerblading just fits perfectly in with the way the world is going anyway right now. That
absolutely,
just the idea of like bullying or harassment, all the stuff that was cool and fun to do in the late 90s and early 2000s. Yeah. Bullying and harassment.
Bullying and harassment.
They were pretty popular.
Pastimes.
Those have faded quite a bit.
I'm still into it a little bit.
At least you're like proud enough to acknowledge that.
What do you do? Bullying, harassment, that type of thing.
You live in somewhere. Australia and North America are the two places that have the stigma was there the longest, especially in popular culture. That the rollerblading stigma was just part of MTV, pop culture, movies, things like that. So it's definitely faded a ton here to the point that rollerblading is a new activity. So have you noticed that over there?
Yes, immensely. Like I honestly, and that's one of the things I love like about street skating is I love being out in public, you know, particularly like being downtown or in the city, is that like, you're showcasing what you love to do to other people. And it's a great opportunity to like spark up a conversation, you know? And yeah, I don't know. I think, and it's like one of those things, like maybe you just see someone random on some rec skates, you know, and you just start a conversation with them. And you know, maybe that, like, it's not like everyone has to aggressive skate or whatever, you know, or be interested in tricks, but like, there is a lot more to the act of skating than just the simple act of just rolling around. But that's always like, it's funny. Like I feel like in the early 2000s, there was like this whole period where I feel like I knew people who got into skating because like they wanted to just grind. In a sense of like, I got into skating originally because like I love the Mighty Ducks and like they were just skating through, you know, shopping malls and stuff. And like the act of skating has always been like the center point for skating for me the whole time. And I think that's still like that now. So there is a lot of interest when people, I feel like aggressive skating has like dropped off the radar, but it's slowly coming back to people seeing it and they're interested in it because it's also not just, I was having a conversation with two skaters who are from Melbourne, Nick and Lucy. The other night we went for a street skate and we were talking about how got into skating and that kind of thing. And because they're relatively newer to it, and just saying how like, you know, when they first sort of saw it in the early 2000s, it was so like everything that was being displayed to them was so unobtainable. Jumping off a big roof or a big rail, like, you know, and I totally get that. Like, it's visually incredible. Like, it's like watching, you know, I don't know, Travis Pastrana do like a big motorcycle jump or something, you know, like I don't know. It's like, there are people that are going to be wanting to be drawn to that and to do that. But yeah, it's definitely going to turn away some people who like aren't interested in going to that level of extreme, you know. And extreme was such a big thing in the early 2000s, you know, like it was the brand.
We have to prove ourselves.
Yeah. And like, yeah, it's so skating now is so way more accessible to people, you know, and like to just do like, you know, there's so many people who are interested. Like a good friend of mine at work Jesse, he's a really talented freestyle, slalom style skater. And like, he's been getting into aggressive skating. Maybe it's the past year or more. And he's loving it. Like, learning new tricks and skating with him was like really great. Because like, like feeding off each other's energy and see something I'd do. And like, he'd ask about it. And like, it's like, I think like right now there's so many different things you can do on the skates. And that's like, I don't know, that's all I kind of hope for in like an idea of like the future of skating,
I love that you said that the act of just skating in general, that's what you got hooked on. And that's definitely what I got hooked on. So was there points, especially for me, the dark ages of kind of like the mid to late 2000s, where it was hard to find inspiration in rollerblading videos and magazines? It was so specifically one thing. So were there any points while you rollerbladed where you questioned like, am I a rollerblader? Like, can I identify with this culture? Or like, do you know what I'm saying? That I remember going to skate barn and thinking,
yeah,
I don't know if I'm a rollerblader. Like,
do I belong here?
Yeah. Did you have those feelings?
I think also, yes, in ways. I think it's sort of like sometimes there can be such extremities between different types of rollerbladers as well. And sometimes you feel like that maybe that can be so isolating that you don't connect in that kind of way. But all it takes is just to, like go skating with other people. And in a sense, you just connect because you're just on the skates. But I don't know. It is interesting. Like in that period, I actually do remember it was in 2008. It was like the beginning of my second year of university. And I was just getting really into school, and doing graphic design. It's funny. I like honestly had this thought that I was like, yeah, maybe I won't be skating much longer, that I'll be doing it, but it'll be like kind of more just a sort of a thing I do recreationally, not in the sense of like that I'm not going to be grinding, because that's partially a lot of the skating that I was doing at that time, grinding stuff. But that I was like, no, I'm going to be pursuing design, for things. And I was like, I remember I took like, it was almost like probably was like one of the longest periods I didn't skate for outside of having an injury, which was like maybe 4 to 8 weeks off. And I just felt like, I was like, oh yeah, I haven't really skated recently. Am I okay with that? And to be honest, I was kind of okay with it. But, then we were filming for a video at the time, which is like our crew's first video, which is Collective Sky. I've said this many times that I'm going to put it online, but it will come online at some point in the future. But I remember we were filming for that, and like that coincided with the first Australian Rolling Open, which was like the first of like a new national rollerblading contest. And it was like a part of WRS, and a lot of people from overseas came. And it was actually when Barlow came, they were filming the beginning of Barlow for Life. And then that's just what the whole thing of being asked to skate for Barlow was. And that also presented because I came fourth in the open division of that comp. It was like the best I'd ever skated at like a national event. And I got qualified for the AIL finals. So it was like getting on Valo, having that opportunity for qualifying for that contest. So I was like, you know what? Like I ended up deferring university because also wasn't really feeling like that connected with school at that particular time. And I was like, I'm gonna go to the US and pursue this because, like, to be honest, I never thought this would happen. So that just like took a whole like a left turn that I honestly, like I said, like the year before, I thought like maybe I could see my future adult life rollerblading slightly less. But life takes those like random turns, and then all of a sudden you just like, you're just doing something. And for me, it was like that was skating. I just took that call to go to America, and then yeah. So I don't know. It's life's funny that way.
When you said that university era, you were possibly clinically depressed. Is that what you said? Possibly, or you could be categorized as that. So
I never, yeah.
The Volo thing, like the going to the United States, is that when that started to shift for you? Like all of that stuff was happening in that era?
No,
Like,
it was after that.
oh, it was
So
after
like
that.
you can really identify. It's pretty clear. Like, so like, I was in Valo for Life in 2009. I was putting out some Valo edits and stuff like online around those years. And then Seven Rats came out in 2011. And yeah, then like around from essentially like 2012 until like I actually graduated university, it was a very, very dark period of my life. And a lot of it actually came down to, like, as I was saying about my perfectionism, like it was to do with the work that I would do at school. Like I had a really bad like relationship with myself that I associated negative. It got to the point where I started questioning, like, in life, when I got around 21, I started realizing that, like, wait, I actually have choice in my life because I've become an adult. And like, I realized I'd just kind of gone through this system and I didn't realize that I had actually had a choice of whether I wanted to do it. I'm in high school. What's the next thing? Oh, go to art school. I'm interested in art and design. Oh, you're going to go to university after that. Okay. I just was in the educational system, like I wasn't stepping out of it in any kind of way. There wasn't a choice of being like, I didn't think there was a choice to not go to school and then like, well, what do you want to do with your life in that sense? It was just like kind of so clear cut. So I started realizing that like, it's like, wait, I can question these things and have authority over my life. And in some ways it was kind of bad because once I made that choice, and it was like I said, like I made that choice to go to America, which was like getting back into school was like really hard to get back into like the rigidity of studying and to doing the work, because I liked the work, but I don't know if I actually loved it, to be honest. And so what I ended up happening is I would just like put it off, and then it'd get to the point where it was supposed to be submitted or it's supposed to be at school showing work, but I'd be like, oh no, I need to do it next week or something. But then I didn't do the work then, because doing the work made me feel awful. Like I didn't have a good relationship with doing it, and it kept going. And I just like, the main thing was feeling as though I was going to be misjudged from my teachers, who essentially were the authority, and the people who, like, because growing up, it was like, I always got pretty much good grades, particularly for my art classes and design classes, so that gave me like some kind of like identity and validity that like I'm good at something, and people in your class are like, oh, he's really good at drawing or really good at photography or whatever. And so then if I like didn't do this work by university times, which, at that time you have to put in the time and the effort to actually get stuff done. Usually by that time I just got by being able to do it, really well at, in a short period of time. But it got to this point where it was catching up on me and I wasn't doing the work. And then I was afraid that like my teachers were essentially going to think that like I'm not good at what it is, and I was too afraid of accepting that reality of getting, misjudged. And I finally started having conversations with my teachers about it, which in the end it was really fine because I just got there and they were very supportive and helpful. And I was even going to a therapist on the university to help me through that as well. And like what ended up happening in relation to skating is that like I wouldn't do the work for school. So I'm like, oh, I've got to play catch up. So I can't go skating, so I wouldn't go out skating. And then like it would just kept going. And I just like was barely skating because like I kept saying I had to do schoolwork, but then I wasn't doing the schoolwork. So it was this awful cycle. And really the only thing I was leaving the house for was my job. Like I've always had a part-time job, like since I was 15. And like going to that was like most people through that time probably just thought I was like, normal, peachy, like, because when I was at work, like I was that, like that place gave me such like great feelings because everyone there was so lovely and I had such good friends there. But at home, I just was like, I was at like the lowest point in my life, you know, like I'd like from someone who did so well in school and like would always do like work that I was proud of, to then like not doing anything and getting like, you know, having to like defer every semester because I was afraid of getting fails. And then it turns out that I would miss those and then I'd get fails. And like, it just was, honestly, it's very appropriate. It was a spiral, you know, and it got worse. And then I just slowly broke through it with the help of like my friends around me, closest friends, and then also family, and then the people at university. Because the thing is the main thing of the whole story of that period of time is that like I knew it wasn't the work. You know, I remember breaking down in tears to my dad one night because I was supposed to finish like a project for school. And I was like, I just can't do this. Like I just can't finish this work. Like it hurts me, like, and I don't know what's wrong with me. And he was saying like, you know, you don't have to put yourself through this. Like this is totally fine to leave and like to do something else with your life, which is great advice. But I knew internally that it was like, it's not the work, because I do love doing design, you know, and it's evident saying like full spiral. But like, I knew that if I sat with it, finished university, that it would mean something to me in the journey in life, that like I would be then prepared to go off and, you know, like continue my life, you know, that like I didn't just let that go and break those habits, you know, or just let those habits like keep living. So I yeah, it did. It took me ages, and eventually I finished and graduated, and it was like this immensely freeing like experience. And that's why I said like I then took a trip to the United States as like a reward. I went in 2014, and you know, went over the country, and that's when I, you know, met Danny and Leon and Dallas down in Blading Cup, and I took a trip up to Vancouver. But you know, so it's like
was it
honestly,
it was painful to do the work? Like, is it because you were such a perfectionist about it? It was hard for you to do something that you felt good about?
Yes, because that's what I'm talking about with the skating earlier, about being perfectionistic. Like it was so detrimental to me that like it had to be of like some standard, like it had to be at some level, you know, that like, and really, you know what it was? It wasn't the thing of like self-critiquing or self-assessing your own work. It was about literally having the approval of the teacher, of someone else telling you that you're valid, you know, your experience, like what your work, you're worthy, you know, like, because like most of my like childhood and teenage years was like wanting approval. I wanted people to, you know, I guess like me, or like feeling like I had something that was like worthy. And then, yeah, like essentially like breaking free of that, finishing, like going through that journey of finishing the work, and then just like realizing that in my life thereafter, from 2015 onwards, well, technically it was 2014 onwards, was up to me to make the choices and to shape my life. And so looking at the person I am now from, you know, 2013 and 2012, like I am immensely different. You know, I still dressed and expressed myself in that way and still love skating, but it's like, it was like the connection to myself and the feeling of empowerment that I was able to summon, you know, like over a period of time, and it's just gradually gotten better. Like as hard as those years were, I'm glad that I did them.
Right. It's like you had to go through those years in order for you to become who you are now. It's interesting. It puts your skating in a whole new context, because it's almost like this emergence and this celebration of your freedom. Like you crawled through the dirt and suffered immensely, and it's like, yeah, you wouldn't have the need and the urge to express yourself and create things if you hadn't gone through those dark times, because you would just be content. So you probably, you know, yeah, all that pain gave you all this.
And you remember when I was saying earlier how like when I like this is before chapter 2 and paycheck, like this is main dish and zigzag times, that I just felt like I didn't really like I didn't feel like I had any like overbearing feeling of I had to skate a certain way or impress someone or do anything. It was like if I went to a spot and felt inclined or motivated to do something, it was purely up to me, and I was like totally comfortable walking away from a spot having not even skated it or just being, that's totally fine. You know, like wow. when I was on Valo in those early years, like I remember I was like, felt like, am I worthy of being in this position? You know, like, and it was compounded with those people saying that like, you're only there because you look a certain way, you know? And like when I got to that point and I just kept following that feeling of like, do I actually want to do this? You know, and just following the I suppose the intrigue of like doing tricks at whatever spots they were, that progressively just built upon itself. Because, you know, the main dish and zigzag footage is just one period, just went into 2 different videos, but like then that evolved to filming for chapter 2. And then when I got to LA, I was already skating so much that I just kept skating with, well, actually I went on a trip with Ivan and a whole bunch of, you know, others, which was in the northwest of the US, which is a good portion of what the Valo 6 part is. It's just, I was just on that trajectory. It just slowly kept building and like you know, trying new things and everything just kept kind of evolving. And yeah, like it's just been an ongoing like trajectory of, I suppose, maybe an upwards direction, I guess.
Yeah, you're like a rubber band. You like hold in one direction and then let go and you shot in the other direction.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Your output was, so it was Calls from the Bank, Follow 6, Paycheck, Burn LA, Vine Street 2, Reactivated. You've done a ton of stuff. And would you say that picking yourself instead of, you know, picking yourself, skating your own way, does that make you happier in everyday life too? That
yes,
that improv that you bring to your skating, you just feel better in life?
Yes, absolutely. Because like just, you know, putting an outfit together just to go to work at the warehouse, like is just another extension of that. You know, like I just it just makes me feel happy. I remember I was having a conversation with Colin Martin about it in LA. Like maybe I think it was actually the weekend of Blading Cup 2019. And he was really, it's so Colin, but he was really like provoking me to get down to like why I dress the way that I do. And like, I think essentially he thought I was just intentionally trying to be provocative, which people do have that strategy, that they want to challenge things, you know, challenge conventions of like dressing differently, you know, wanting people to like maybe have an emotional response to seeing me in a skate park or in the street or whatever. Like that happens. That's a byproduct of just me doing what I do, but that's not at the core. I honestly told him, I was like, look, the way I dress and how it evolves and all that sort of stuff is essentially just like me feeling the most comfortable, you know. And I went even further to say that it actually is like it makes me feel the most beautiful as a person, like as in not only spiritually but physically. And that taps into confidence of like, you know, not everyone has to say confidence is attached in that way, but for me that's how it translates. That's how I can feel confident in the world, is about presenting myself in the way that I do, of like not being inhibited by like how I choose to dress,
and that,
you know, or how I choose to skate.
That helps you enjoy skating more and helps you like become who you want to become when you're skating. Because if you have it recently, like, do you ever just go skating and just like put on like, I don't know, a black pair of Dickies and a white shirt? No.
I don't even own anything like. I don't even own a pair of like. I don't own a pair of black pants. I don't own a pair of black shoes. I definitely don't own a black T-shirt. No, well, I mean, I guess I do. It probably has a graphic on it. Like, you know, I have the fantasy one by Patrick Ritter, the FTS one.
Oh yeah.
But, you know, like, but yeah, it's like, I think that's the other thing with fashion and stuff too, is that like I've done it for so long, and it's a constantly evolving thing that I think about, that it's like, to someone else to put together my outfit of a morning going to work, like I don't even know, like maybe they wouldn't know what to do, or like it would take them ages, like, or whatever. But it's like skating, like when you're in practice of doing these sorts of things, it's like, and also if you have like, you know, I do own a lot of clothes. There's much less here than in LA, but like, that's my palette. And it's like, I go and choose and put it together, and I know what I have. So I can quickly think of these compositions. You know, it's like if you go to a skate spot, you could quickly identify to like do something. And like, maybe someone's never thought of that because they're, you know, they've never seen it been done. So they don't have that, like, you know, it's like their eye isn't opened in that kind of way. So like for me, my eye is opened with dressing and with my style of clothes, because I'm so immersed in it. So it just happens kind of really quickly. And like,
when you were going through this dark period that you described, were you dressing the way you dress now?
I'm glad that you actually said this. Yes. No. Partially no. So at American Apparel, by that, because I worked at American Apparel from 2008 to 2016, just before I left LA. And in the beginning, it was way more like open to what you could wear. You used to wear, you know, like, you know, all you had to wear was like pants and a top. I tie-dyed all of my tops, and they were totally cool with it because they sold rip dye. And I used to wear belts and scarves and all the jewelry and stuff. But then progressively, it got more like structured, like they wanted the branding to, you know, to look a certain way. So you had to do certain things, and certain things you couldn't. Which is fine.
Robbie, we're going to have to talk about your tie-dye shirts. Could you just start wearing a plain white shirt to work?
Right.
Would that be
Well,
okay?
I did. I just started wearing not plain white T-shirts, but just plain colored T-shirts. but that's fine. It was a job. You just went and did it. Like, that's all cool. But so one of the things that came about during that period of time was I did question my connection to my clothes and my fashion as being how important it was. Because partially you could even say it was a bit of an addiction, that it was so important to me that I would, you know, like always thinking about clothes, always, you know, buying clothes. And that can be problematic. But also during that time, I actually used to have really bad night terrors every so often. And, you know, think what you want of these things, but like I used to wake up in my bedroom and think that my entire room had been ransacked. So I'd wake up in a fright, and I'd think my computer was gone, and I'd think all of my possessions, like my clothes and my music, were all gone. And then it would take about 30 seconds or so to me to realize, you know, for my eyes to adjust and to see the room as it was when I fell asleep, that nothing has happened. And I started to think about, like, what are these things actually, what is this experience meaning? You know, there's no actual meaning to it. But one of the things I feel like I was putting some meaning to was that maybe my entire identity was so hung on my physical appearance that without, you know, colorful Robbie in the world, you know, and people liking me for the way I dress and whatnot, who am I? You know, like that. And I started to really question that. And I wanted to feel like what it would be like just to not have the burden of to dress up. So I started wearing, you know, sort of regular clothes, you know, very much not in the style of like what people know me as. But then as I sort of started to come out of those, you know, years of depression, finishing university and whatnot, I one of the things that was so important for me was the fact that I realized, you know what? The clothing, it is just something that is material. It is something that is just exterior. It is a veneer. But, which in the end, it shouldn't be the thing that matters the most in your life or in the world. But it actually is something that I love. I feel so good when I do it. And it actually is at the core of who I am and my identity. You know, and I felt like if I kept doing it, it could only be something that would enrich my existence, because I would feel more empowered by doing so, which is what just naturally started happening. And that's when I made even more of the choice to like wear essentially anything I wanted in my wardrobe, as opposed to like, oh no, I'm just saving that for like, you know, a party that I go to, or going out, or going to a music show or something, to just being like, no, I'm wearing everything, because skating is the experience that I am so attached to, that I feel the most me at doing. That why wouldn't you combine the thing that you feel is most you with the other thing that feels the most you? So I just kept doing it. And yeah, it's like, I don't know. So like, that's, I don't have the same, I love doing it. Like I love fashion, because I do think that it has the power. It has the ability and the power to give people confidence, to change your experience, to change how you exist in the world with the people around you, and how you interact, to how you're received, to how what you put out. And that's why it's really important for me to do it, because that's my association with fashion. Transformation is like at the key of who I am. So every opportunity to like, you know, it's like moving to the United States. Like I didn't know, like I've been there, you know, 3 trips just to skate, but I'd never moved there. It was like a pretty daunting, scary experience, but I knew I had to do it in order to grow. You put yourself in these positions where you're vulnerable, and you just kind of have to like find your way through. So I look back at the 4 years I lived in LA till I came back just for COVID. I'm way more of like a person who understands themselves than I did when I left in 2016. Yeah. Sorry, a lot, but yeah.
Really good.
And you're going back there? I have a couple more questions then, but you're going back to LA?
Yeah, I leave next Friday, and essentially I'm going like because I ended up getting a green card, and so which was a couple of years ago. But one of the things with having a green card is that you can't leave the country for more than a year. Otherwise, they consider your permanent residency status abandoned. So if I don't go back, I'll lose the green card. So I figure eventually I was going to go back anyway. Like maybe if COVID was a bit, you know, I'd wait, who knows, however much longer, but like I don't really have the choice now. So yeah, you know, going back, I'm, you know, nervous in relation to obviously how much more rampant COVID is there than it is in Australia, particularly Melbourne. But, you know, I'm also looking forward to like what it'll come, and reconnecting with all of my lovely friends, you know, who like, because I lived there for since 2016. So there's so much like, you know, like of the place and of like my friends there that like I've missed dearly. Yeah.
It looks like an amazing, well, I've been there. I haven't skated there, but even just walking around and being in downtown LA, it looks like an amazing place to skate. And I love, you captured it in Burn LA, you captured it in Full Spiral. It's like you're like a futuristic guy in this post-apocalyptic city. I love that, especially more so in Full Spiral, the intro. It had like mixes of dystopian science fiction. Like I got that weird feeling that
yes,
even like there was tents in the background. Apparently it's even more post-apocalyptic now, but are you referencing anything like hackers or just slightly, or
Yeah, you know, like, for sure. Absolutely. I remember like, so, a lot of it kind of came around. So I started filming in 2018, but I think the idea of and how it all sort of started to come together in terms of conceptually was maybe towards the end of that year in early 2019. That was kind of the narrative that I was trying to find it, and that's started what formed. But yeah, absolutely. Like I was like, you know, Burn LA, I was just bringing in inspiration from, you know, cinema that I was interested in. And it's like the same with this, but I wanted to fuse that with more recognizable skating, you know, imagery. And so, you know, some of the most interesting things is like some of those early Team Rollerblade videos, you know, that were used for the promotional videos. Like I was so like amazed at seeing those. Like I saw Dare to Air for the first time actually, like when it was in 2014. It wasn't like I didn't see it as an early kid.
Me too.
Oh really? Right. Yeah. And it's funny enough, Dare to Air was actually like, I remember being so surprised that it was way different than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be more like hoax than what it was. But just in terms of the music selection and what it featured. But yeah, like I did want to like the other thing as well, like I wanted to push my image of you know, with fashion and whatnot differently than how I've been presenting myself in Paycheck and Burn LA. And so I just kind of naturally followed that. And then, yeah, it definitely had, you know, intertwined with because I'm a big fan of science fiction films of the 80s. And like, I remember, yeah, I did see Hackers for the first time, like in 2019, and that was really inspirational. And yeah, like the fashion within that was definitely something that I was you know, keying in with. And then even to like a little bit of degree, which is cool to see that like more people now are taking interest in these references and these influences, like Hackers or like Jet Set Radio, the video game. But yeah, it was just like, you know, for instance, it's like, oh, I've never really worn neon stuff before. Like, I'm just going to try that and see how it kind of evolves. And it's sort of like just developing a sense, like a character. It's like seeing myself in a different way. And that's how I said, like, I just kept that goatee because it was like something that I'd never sort of done before. But yeah, it was like, one of the things I love about LA is like how like kind of disheveled it is. And like, I really tried to highlight as much of like the landscape as I could within like in and around the tricks. And yeah, that intro was really fun to do. Like it evolved, like, because the other part of Full Spiral was like the photo series, which I shot with Brandon Smith. And that was an extension of what I'd already been doing for the film, like in the filming. And so some of it was going back to locations and spots, like with ideas, because like I had all of these locations in mind that I'd seen or I'd already maybe had skated at. You know, I had ideas of like what I wanted to wear, the movement that I wanted to do in the photographs, and then we'd go there. Sometimes as well, it would like I would end up filming something because we shot the photo and we got something really interesting. So I wanted to tie it all in together. But yeah, like doing that with Brandon was so much fun. Like I've, you know, been a good friend. Brandon's been a good friend of mine since I first met him in 2009. And I've always admired not only his skating, but also what he's been doing over the years with photography. And I thought it would be a really fun, you know, like collaboration to work with him. So yeah, a lot of the time we just probably went out maybe like 5 sessions, and you know, it was very structured, knew what we were like, where we were going to go, and what to wear and things like that. But a lot of it was very like improvised, like the skating, you know, because we didn't shoot it on film, we shot it on digital. But it was a lot of the time it was like we'd shoot something and we're like, oh, I think, you know, I want more of like like, so there's one which is shot like on this bridge in Chinatown. It's just like a landscape, and I'm doing like this double toe roll, if fakey, just like looking behind, and the back of it's sort of like shot in twilight, and there's like all these streaks of light. And I was saying to him that like, oh, you know, like I want more, you know, movement in the image. So we just kind of like kept, you know, spitballing and working on it. And like he's such a talent with the camera and with lighting that like, you know, the images just evolved to something that like greater than I'd even originally sort of thought. And I think that's the best with any kind of collaboration. So yeah, I'm immensely proud of those images. And yeah, I'm glad that whole, like the visual side of it translates to you. So yeah.
The photos are incredible. Like they're the kind of rollerblading photos I love, that they don't look like skateboarding or action sports. They look like futuristic rollerblading. And something that was great about Dare to Air, what's great about Hackers, Jet Set Radio, rollerblading is a really futuristic activity. And I think we don't use that as a visual thing in our video. We're still kind of stuck in the action sports mold of skateboarding videos and stuff. So I loved that about Full Spiral and the photos. I love futuristic.
Thank you. Yeah, the like, yeah, some of them were so fun, you know, and it's like, I remember like, you know, so for instance, in Full Spiral, the film, and also the video, and then also the photos, it's like, you know, it like people I feel like must have just like disregarded this style of filming because they just felt it was associated with it being corny or whatever. But like, I loved in some of the early ones where people would like, you know, basically gap or just go over the lens of the camera that you didn't see anything other than the sky. And it's just like thinking of the framing, you know, that's like you don't have to show everything, you know, in skating. Like sometimes it's like, as much as like is about documentation, like was what aggressive, you know, rollerblading films often do. It's just, you're just documenting what is being done. That like, sometimes it doesn't always has to be about showing everything. That like maybe just translating it through the film, that it just provokes an emotional response. You know, like there's a trick in it in the video where I do this like almost like laid back wheelbarrow cess on the ground, and you don't see where I go. Like I just hop up out of frame, but like I just like that aspect of like, you don't have to show that I like finished it, you know, I just go in and out of the frame. Or like with the one where I'm just jumping over the camera, like it essentially it just, I think it adds something a little kind of extra to the whole, like thinking that like, you know what, skating can like take you, you know, into the sky. Like maybe it's some kind of like symbolic, you know, like the imagery in itself is more symbolic, that like, you know, maybe you are just like flying in the sky, that this is the experience that's what skating gives you, this feeling of euphoria, or like just zoom, or that's what you would want to do, just be able to just like zoom and just fly through things. It's like,
it's kind of dreamy.
Yeah, like I wanted more of like an emotional response, you know, from those parts of the skating, because like, you know, I'm immensely flattered when people say to me that they never know what's coming next in terms of the tricks. Like I love that. Like that's, I really appreciate, you know, that as a response. But also like with the intro and the outro, like I wanted more of like, I wanted people to feel like something like that was fun, like kind of like some weird kind of 80s danger, or that it was or that it was kind of campy and silly, that it wasn't taking itself too seriously. Like, a lot of times I'm like, you know, but it's in like that can look really cool, you know, like and it's like, you know, as look, the both of you know this because you've done this sort of stuff, you know, like, and like it can just be fun, and there's nothing wrong with like taking stuff that's fun and that could be interpreted as silly as serious.
Yes,
because there's so many people who don't skate who can look at it and be like, whoa, that's epic, that's so cool, that's so fun, maybe I'll try some skates, you know, like I don't know, like yeah. So actually an interesting thing that I was thinking of is like Do you know of the Rollerblade 7?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so like whenever I saw that like as a teenager, like the trailer, I don't think I've seen the whole thing, but there's a running scene in that, and it reminds me of like some of the things that you've done. They like run through these fields and stuff, and like you know, I don't know if that was like something that you took inspiration from, but like I just love how, you know, loose and playful that, you know, you all have been in your skating, because it definitely like, you know, it just translates to skating could be so serious for so long.
Yeah.
This self-consciousness of like trying to like, you know, to be acknowledged and to be respected for being good and worthy of the action sports world, you know, like, you know, and then like you've got, I don't know, it's like you've got the both of you, and then you've got Danny, like, and you've got Leon, and like, I don't know, it's just like sometimes there's a whole thing as well that like, I don't know, I just think like you both, you know, being, you know, you're in North America, but you're like non-American, and I feel like that experience informed your take on skating, you know?
There is a Canadian thing where, are they joking? Are they not joking? Are they serious? It looks like they're serious but having fun.
Yeah.
I can't tell what are they doing, and that's the point. It's all just intuitive things that you do in the moment, and then you put it all together, and you get a feeling. You get a bunch of feelings.
Yes.
And Danny took that shit to another level, because where our videos had, I always say our videos had funny parts and weird tricks, kind of like there'd be little funny things between, but Danny molded it all together and just brought it to a place where I didn't even know it was possible. And then the athleticism mixed in, like he took the Canadian torch to like a whole new place.
And I know you both will include this, but like, you know, the Brady brothers, Colin and Stuart, you know what I mean? Like, we got to give praise to them. You know what I mean? And like, and just even like I tell people to watch the game, you know, like who don't really skate. I'm just like, oh, have you seen Watch the Game? Like it's not like it's not a video that you're gonna think you're gonna know it when you go into it, and it's like that thing is a piece. It's a piece of art. It's a masterpiece. You know?
Watch the Game is a masterpiece.
The whole trilogy, is that part of the trilogy or no? Because there's Tim Hortons
fishing clips.
That ended the trilogy, didn't it?
It is the last film that Colin did. Yeah.
Incredible videos. If people haven't seen them, those
Tim Hortons. I have to revisit Tim Hortons.
Tim Hortons is really good and
really good.
For a long time.
The Braddies, incredibly underrated. Yeah. But we're probably over time. I have one more question. Todd, do you have any more?
I'm good.
I just have one last one.
Sure. Yeah.
Why full spiral?
Because that's what rollerblading is. You know, it takes you. It just keeps going. That's how I relate to skating. You know, it just keeps going. You know, further and further and further in it, and like, you know, like a spiral, it just keeps going, and eventually you don't see the path anymore. It just becomes just this blur, and you're right in the center of it. And that's my relation to skating.
Wow. It's gonna keep going after we're gone. That's crazy too.
Yeah.
The spiral goes.
Yes.
This is just the beginning.
Yep.
And
full spiral.
This podcast has been part of the full spiral.
Yeah, this was awesome, Robbie.
So grateful to
really good.
Have had this opportunity to chat with you. I mean, we've been wanting to do this for so long.
Yeah, a long time.
And we're going to do it in person.
Yes. Well, yes.
Well, this decade, we'll do it in person.
Definitely.
I mean, look, as soon as like, I would figure the borders aren't open, like to come up to Canada. So, but whenever that happens, I will be there, and I will be pestering Danny and co to take a trip to Kamloops. If not, like, I am just going to take the trip. I'm going to get the bus, and I'm just going to go. Technically, I've already been there. I've been to the bus depot. So
in Kamloops.
Yeah, when I went to Saskatoon.
Joey, we got to go to LA too this decade.
It's on the list. I really want to film some stuff there and meet some people.
Yes.
I would like to see the both of you like skating in that environment would be amazing. I mean, it could be anywhere. Like, it would be a delight. Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay.
Thank you, Robbie.
Full spiral.
Yep. It's on.
Okay.
Thank you, Robbie.
Great hangout, you guys.
Yeah.
Likewise. Thank you.